When it comes to performing maintenance on rental properties, cleaning air ducts might not be the first thing that pops in your head, but by law, landlords are required to provide safe and habitable housing for their tenants. The HVAC system, however, lands somewhere in between the lines. An air duct cleaning may not be required by law, but should be considered by landlords. So I'm going to explain everything about cleaning air ducts, from the effects it has on air quality to the effects it has on the entire HVAC system. And to begin, let's go over some of the reasons that landlords actually should conduct air duct cleanings in the properties. The first thing that landlords would want to know before getting the air ducts cleaned is, why are you doing it? And without a solid reason, I understand why landlords might want to skip out on it, but some of the main reasons that landlords should clean their air ducts include prevention of heating and cooling issues, potential liability, lower property value, and mold and mildew. So let's go over how each of those are caused and how they could be solved. First, the heating and cooling issues. One of the main issues with unclean HVAC systems is that they can bring down the heating and cooling capacity. Since there can be building up of dust and debris blocking the air ducts, the whole system has to work harder to get the air out. That means that you may even be paying more in electric bills if you leave the air ducts uncleaned. If the tenant is responsible for the utility bills, the landlord may not notice the problems. However, depending on the lease agreement, the landlord might actually be responsible for HVAC maintenance if the tenant does not report a problem. The second reason to do these cleanings is potential liability. Another issue that arises from having dirty air ducts is that it could pose a potential liability. For tenants that have respiratory issues, clean air is really important for them. If the air in the property is not clean, they can have severe symptoms and the landlord can be held liable. So if the tenant is complaining about low air quality in the property, it might be time for an air duct cleaning. If you find that the ducts are clean, however, there are other options. Many landlords choose to install air purifiers in the rental properties. These devices basically clean the air around them, making it safe to breathe. For more information on air purifiers, you can check out DoorLoop's full guide on air purifiers, and I will leave that link down in the description. And if you're trying to sell a property, having a defective or dirty HVAC system can severely hurt the value. This is especially true if there is mold present in these ducts. Unfortunately, this mold could go undetected for a long time and could be noticed during a pre-sale inspection. So to prevent this, landlords or tenants should conduct regular maintenance on their air ducts and HVAC systems in general. Not only will this help with selling the property, but it might be required by the building codes as well. And lastly, mold and mildew. As I mentioned before, one of the most severe problems associated with not having clean air ducts is that mold and mildew can grow on the ducts. If mold and mildew are present in the rental property, tenants can suffer from a variety of things. Some of the consequences of exposure to mold can include asthma, sneezing, coughing, shortness of breath, and much more, depending on the tenant's health history. If the tenant begins to show any of these symptoms, the landlord may be liable for any charges due to the health issues. The best way to stay on top of these issues is to know what to look out for. So let's go over some of the ways that you can tell your air ducts need cleaned or not. One of the most obvious signs that your air ducts need to be cleaned is if insects are present. Insects make their way into air ducts and make their nest there. They also leave behind all sorts of bacteria in their droppings. When this happens, bacteria is spread throughout the entire HVAC system. A clear indication of vermin infestation in the ductwork is a foul smell. There can also be evidence of chewed up materials or actual droppings. However, if there is a foul smell in your property, it does not necessarily mean you have an infestation. And to learn more about dealing with smells in your rental property, I suggest you visit DoorLoop's full guide on removing smells from rental properties, and that link will also be down in the description. Another telltale sign that your air ducts need to be cleaned is if there's dust in the air. Although dust can come from many places, it's very common that it comes from the HVAC system. One way to see if this is the case is go stand by the ducts right when the system turns on. If you see dust coming out of the duct, then it's probably a good idea to get it cleaned. However, if nothing comes out, you may need to look other places to find the source. And of course, let's talk about mold. Mold in the air ducts can be pretty dangerous for some tenants. We've already discussed some of the health issues that arise from having mold in your air ducts, but one thing we did not discuss was identifying it. The easiest way to detect mold in air ducts is by the musty odor. If not, there will need to be an inspection done because mold is not very easy to spot visually. If you do find that there is mold in your HVAC system, action must be taken as quickly as possible. However, there are some disagreements as to who is responsible for such expensive repairs. So let's go over 3 different cases of determining who is responsible for the repairs. And I know for landlords and tenants alike, taking care of mold infestations can come as an expensive and unpredicted expense. However, it's really important to know who exactly needs to bear that expense. So let's discuss the tenant's responsibility. Depending on the lease agreement, agreement, the tenant may be responsible for these repairs. This is an unusual agreement and can potentially lead to problems with the landlord. The main concern with this is that the problems may go overlooked by the tenant since they're only there temporarily. Since tenants will probably not be on the property to witness the benefits of the repairs, they'll likely ignore them. This could lead to a whole array of problems for the landlord in the future, so let's talk about if it's the landlord's responsibility. The landlord being responsible for all major repairs is usually the most common agreement. In this agreement, the tenant must notify the landlord of any issues in the property and then they'll be taken care of. However, this does mean that the tenant must adhere to the landlord's schedule. It also means that the tenant can be potentially charged extra fees if the repairs are too expensive. And finally, the last way to take care of repairs on the property is to split the responsibility. This is usually the most beneficial agreement as both parties have a degree of control and expense. An agreement like this can mean different things. The first case can be that every repair is split between the two. This means that the price of the maintenance or repair is simply halved and each party pays half. The other case can be that each party is responsible for certain repairs and maintenance. So for example, the tenant might be responsible for something like changing the carbon monoxide detector batteries, while the landlord is responsible for the entire HVAC system. The only thing that matters is that the agreement is fair for both parties. This is why it's so important to pay attention to anything that's included in the lease agreement and fight to include anything that you feel should be included. So I hope this video helped you better understand cleaning the air ducts in rental properties, and if it did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more property management content. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!